NBA free agency officially begins tomorrow. Let's get into it. I'm gonna do this off the top of my head, no script, nothing like that. Remember, subscribe. Once I hit 1K, somebody's getting a jersey. It's gonna be nice. So Russell Westbrook, we know how his situation with the Lakers went. We know now he's on the Clippers. He played pretty well last year. I will say, I think that he ends up back on the Clippers. I think he will use whatever exception the Clippers have, and that's where his money will come from because he played pretty well and he deserves that. On the other hand, if this whole Harden situation shakes out, I don't know if he's going to be as down for that. Not that him and Harden have any problems, but Harden is going to essentially be their point guard. So why would he want to do that when he's really trying to rebuild up his value so he can get another big contract? Once you become a buyout guy, you kind of just start getting minimums every year from then on out. If he doesn't end up back with the Clippers, I think Miami will be a spot that looks for him because Miami's looking to get rid of Lowry, so then Russell Westbrook can come in and he can replace Lowry. Chris Middleton, all right, this one is tough. I don't really see any other option for him other than going back to Milwaukee. I do think he could go to somewhere like Houston, but does he really want to do that? I don't think Houston wants that. He kind of doesn't fit their timeline, honestly. And he's going to command probably what, $25 to $30 million a year for sure. I think the Bucks, because of the new CBA, are going to end up losing one of Middleton or one of Brook Lopez, and I think the one they're going to lose is Brook. I think they're going to be able to sit down and find a number that works for Chris Middleton, and he's going to be back with Milwaukee. There are some other teams in the West that I'm sure would love his services, but all the teams with cap space, I just don't really see it happening with him because he doesn't really fit anybody's timeline. He's not like a real bona fide superstar. All the teams that are young and have a bunch of cap space to use, I don't think they're trying to use it on a guy like Chris. Okay, now we have Kyrie Irving. This one is really interesting to me because we know who Kyrie is. We know he's a malcontent. We know he's a guy that is painted as this person who is never satisfied and is always causing a storm wherever he goes, even though I kind of disagree with that. I think a lot of NBA stars, especially the ones that have kind of taken advantage of contract situations in the past, are starting to see that owners aren't as willing and GMs aren't as willing to give as much money as they have in the past, at least not as much money as easily as they have in the past, because they have all these rules to abide by and all this cap manipulation they have to do now because of the new CBA. So I think a guy like Kyrie is probably going out there thinking, oh, you know what, I'm Kyrie Irving, max contract, let's make it happen. But you have all these teams that are reluctant to give him that. Even before this new CBA, they were pretty reluctant to give him what he was looking for. So now we got a news report today that Kyrie is going to talk with the Phoenix Suns right when free agency opens. Looking at what he did last year when there was all the talk about him going to the Lakers for one of their exceptions, I think Kyrie's just doing that as a leverage play. I think he'll be back with the Mavericks. I think it'll be a fair deal for both sides, maybe a little bit more fair for the Mavericks than it is for Kyrie. The Mavericks honestly don't have that much leverage, and Kyrie honestly doesn't have that much leverage either. So you get this situation where both sides think they're right. So they may be initially at a stalemate a little bit, but I think ultimately Kyrie ends up back there because a lot of the other options that he wants, he's going to have to take massive pay cuts because the hard cap will trigger if they do a sign and trade for DeAndre Ayton, and that's not going to work out financially. So Kyrie's basically going to have to take the minimum if he wants to go to Phoenix. If he wants to go to the Lakers, probably basically going to have to take the minimum or take one of their exceptions, and I don't think he really wants to do either of those. So I think the Maverick. D'Angelo Russell, I think he ends up back with the Lakers. I think he'll probably be on a shorter deal, and I think it'll be a deal where it honestly won't be as much as people are thinking. And this doesn't mean that D'Angelo is going to be on the Lakers for the rest of his career. I think they're going to do that in order to have an asset in case somebody comes available at the trade deadline. You can use his salary, throw in that 2029 pick or one of your first round picks that you drafted this year, and you'll be able to get another rotation player back, especially depending on how the roster shakes out after free agency. If they could bring in another point guard, if the Warriors end up waving Chris Paul down the line, we don't know. So I think D'Angelo Russell back to the Lakers on a smaller deal, something fair, no overpay, no underpay. Kevin Love, okay, like I said, he's a buyout guy, so he's probably going to be looking at minimums for the rest of his career. I can see him going back to Miami. Of course, the threat to play with LeBron always looms for him. I can see a team like Milwaukee, if they lose out on a guy like Brook Lopez, they're going to panic and need somebody to replace him. We know the Warriors love people that can shoot. We know Portland is an option for him. But if I really have to choose one, I'll just make the safe bet and say Miami. I am kind of feeling like Lakers is a strong possibility for him. But overall, I think Miami treated him well, so he's going to go back. He probably feels like there's unfinished business there. Draymond Green, simply put, Draymond has been underpaid his entire career, so this is kind of his chance to actually get some big money. Now the question is, will the Warriors pay him that? I think they'll be very reluctant to do so with the new rules, but I think it'll be right for them to pay him and all he's done for the franchise. But I think it'll be one of those situations where he goes and meets with another team to kind of pull the leverage play, and then ultimately he ends up back with the Warriors for a little bit more money than they maybe wanted to pay him. But like I said, Draymond's been underpaid his whole career. He deserves it. I think he's back to the Warriors on a deal where maybe 3 years and, something that's fair enough for him, not a full max. Fred VanVleet, I think the Houston rumors are very, very real. I mean, they have a lot of money. They got to spend it on somebody. I think Fred is young enough to where he kind of fits their timeline. They don't really have a point guard. Not to say Fred is a great floor general by any means, but they don't have a point guard at all. They can just overpay 2 years in a team option on the third year, something like that. They can get Fred VanVleet and bring him in. That's what I think happens with him. Jeremy Grant. Okay, this one is tough. Grant has shown us that he is willing to take the money and go to a situation that may not be a winning situation. I think with Portland, there's just so much indecision right now that they don't even really know what route they want to take. So maybe Grant can just go ahead early on and leave to a team like maybe the Spurs, or he can honestly go back to the Pistons and do what he did before. The Pistons, they'd probably love to have him back, try and build with him, and if it doesn't work out, trade him again like they did before. It really puts Portland in a tough situation if they kind of don't get what they want in terms of bringing in another star to help Dame. But I think overall, you can probably bet on Jeremy Grant taking some money. He wants his money. But I think he'll end up on another team, one of those younger teams that have space, like the Spurs, Pistons, Pacers. But I think that pre-established relationship he has with Detroit, I think he'll ultimately just go back there. Eric Gordon, a guy that gets trashed on and everyone thinks is really bad, probably just because he makes too much money. So he's going to be on a minimum. I think he's going to be a good get for anybody that gets him, even though he's obviously not the player he once was. At first, I thought he was just going to go wherever Harden went. But now, thinking about it, he'll probably go to some team like, I think the Lakers would be a good fit for him. Rob Pelinka used to be his agent. He's been linked with them many times over the years, and he has an established relationship with AD. So that's a pretty seamless fit in my opinion. Karis LeVert, man, I just don't know. I've never been really high on him as a player, and I think that Cleveland paying like $20 million for him would be a huge overpay. I've been seeing some people talk about that. I don't know if that works, especially with how tight money is these days. I think overall he'll go to a team and probably go for their mid-low exception. Maybe he can go to a team like the Raptors or a team that's like kind of trying to contend, but they know they're not a contender, so they use their mid-level on him because they could flip him later, something like that. Maybe like he goes to the Grizzlies or the Raptors or the Hawks. My gut is telling me Raptors, so let's just go with them. Malik Beasley, real quick, the Lakers said that they were in touch with his reps. I can see him going back to the Lakers on a smaller deal. He seems to like playing there. He seems to enjoy being in a big market, so we'll see. Christian Wood, the bridge burner himself. I don't think he's back in Dallas. I don't think Dallas even wants him back. Miami has been linked to him. I don't think he's a good fit for Miami because Miami doesn't like to deal with nonsense. So I doubt Christian Wood will end up there. I think he'll end up on a team like Charlotte, where they think they need to bring in as much talent as they can. They bring in a guy like him hoping they could finally, tap into his potential, even though he's obviously like a head case and has had problems in basically every single team he's been to. But you know what? Charlotte's like, well, we don't have that luxury to pick and choose, so let's just bring in Christian Wood. I think he ends up in a team like Charlotte. Kyle Kuzma, there was some talk with him going to the Rockets today. I think that's a leverage play to get as much money as he can. I think ultimately he ends up with maybe a team like Sacramento. They are kind of still in that, they're not youth, they're not like a young team, but they're still youthful, if that makes sense. So Kyle Kuzma kind of fits that mold. He's been linked with them in the past, almost got traded to them. I know Luke Walton isn't there anymore. Regardless, usually when a player is linked to a team before, they end up there somehow, some way. So I think Kyle Kuzma goes to the Sacramento Kings. Brook Lopez, I think he leaves Milwaukee, casualty of the new CBA. I think he ends up on the Los Angeles Lakers. He's been on the team before, pre-established relationship. The guy that kind of, I guess you could say, booted him out isn't with the team anymore. He's from the area. Him and his brother are huge Disneyland fans, so they have that going for them. He'd be a perfect fit, and the Lakers could just use their MOE on him. So I think Brook Lopez to the Lakers is a pretty seamless fit for him. While we're on Lakers, I'm just going to say Cam Reddish, been linked to the Lakers for a long time. I could see him finally making his way there. Very simple. Just look at which agency represents him. All right, Dylan Brooks, I think he's going to end up taking up a big chunk of money from the Houston Rockets. They got money to spend. Memphis already told you you're out. So I think he's going to end up going to a team that kind of needs more of an identity. And even if it's not the best move to bring him in to be your locker room presence, I think that's what's going to happen. And he can provide them something. He may not be perfect, but I think overall he can bring some intensity to a team that kind of just goes out there and plays AAU basketball. Jakob Poeltl, the Spurs have cap space. The Spurs seem to like him. So it's funny to see him going back and forth to the Spurs and to the Raptors over and over again. But I think he goes back to the Spurs and, they just continue that relationship there. I'd be kind of, I guess, would he start? I mean, I don't know. They don't want Wemby going straight up and just being like, all right, go against AD, go against Jokic, go against Embiid, go against all these guys. So they could bring in Jakob, kind of have him take that load at first and go from there. Bruce Brown, At first, I was pretty confident about him going back to the Nuggets, but now I think he'll take the money and go to Indiana. I mean, Indiana's building something over there. He'd be a pretty great fit next to Tyrese Halliburton. So I think overall, Indiana would be excited to have him on a fair contract. I mean, Bruce Brown, to be honest, before this little playoff run, he wasn't known for doing some of the things that he does at a high level. So the money available for him probably isn't as much as people think, but I think it's enough to kind of pry him away and take what's safe rather than just, oh, let's run him back in Denver because we just want a ring. He already got his ring, so why do you go and run it back? He's young enough to where he's trying to get paid, basically. Mo Bamba, he got waived by the Lakers today. If he doesn't go back on a shorter term deal with them, and kind of like, why would he? He didn't really play for them. To be honest, if the Lakers get Brook, like I said, then I actually think randomly my gut is telling me Mo Bamba ends up with the Warriors. The Warriors need some size. They love people that can shoot, and I think they could probably get him right health-wise. So Mo Bamba, Warriors, makes sense to me. All right, those are most of the big names, I guess you could say. I mean, I can't go through everyone and basically predict where they're all going. This is so many moving parts. That's the thing about the NBA. All this crazy stuff. I mean, look at the Harden stuff that happened today. Harden was the guy I had on my list, but now it's like, who knows what's going to happen to him. I think he ends up getting traded to the Clippers. And then, that just changes everything. Changes the Westbrook situation, which changes all these other different situations. So I'm not going to sit here and go through every single one. A lot of people are going to go back to the same teams they were on before. But now I have to edit this video and try and get it out before tomorrow because free agency starts tomorrow at 3 p.m. So good luck to me. Let's see how crappy this video is. Thank y'all. Y'all keep it going. I'm going to keep it going.